The U.S. Department of Justice announced it would investigate Chicago as part of a mission to combat anti-Semitism. This after they began visiting 10 university campuses that reported anti-Semitic incidents since October of 2023. Columbia University in New York is one of them, where we just learned a second person who participated in pro-Palestinian protests has now been arrested by immigration officials. In our area, Northwestern, DePaul, and the University of Chicago saw similar protests. Our Sabrina Franza joins us now. And Sabrina, there's some growing concern among some that these protests that we saw at these campuses last year are going to be part of this mission we're talking about.
Joe, some students are worried watching what has happened to protesters at Columbia University. We talked to an organizer who brought us back to the encampment at DePaul last year. He says their movement was not violent, nor should it be the subject of an investigation, but that it was students exercising their First Amendment right to speech and assembly.
The students had one demand, which is divestment.
Hussam Marajda helped to organize the pro-Palestinian encampment at DePaul University.
The students had to escalate to encampments and occupations of buildings because for a long time they were ignored by their universities.
He says this most recent investigation by the Federal Anti-Semitic Task Force could put their movement and First Amendment liberties at risk.
Our movement is being criminalized as anti-Semitic. This is a growing movement that is fighting for, liberation of Palestine. They want the end of the occupation and the end of Zionism, and it's being criminalized and demonized as anti-Semitic.
The Department of Justice says they plan to meet with city leaders in New York, LA, Boston, and Chicago, as well as impacted students, community leaders, and local law enforcement to find out if federal intervention is warranted.
Universities need to be held to account. If they have rules, they need to enforce those rules. Freedom of speech does not include bullying and intimidation.
Daniel Goldwyn works for the Jewish United Fund. He says they've been tracking anti-Semitic incidents rise.
That Jewish students, Jewish families have to plan out their days, think about security. Do they wear a Jewish symbol when they walk out of the house? Do they cover their head when they walk out of their house because they're afraid of being Jewish publicly or afraid of being Jewish in their place of education?
Chicago police data shows anti-Semitic crimes were at a 5-year high last year. Their data doesn't detail where those crimes happened.
Here in Chicago, we participated in the DePaul encampments, Northwestern encampments. There isn't anything violent.
The Department of Justice did not answer our questions about how they would be evaluating cities or how they would, quote, intervene if necessary. We'll follow up. In the newsroom, Sabrina Franza, CBS News, Chicago. Joe?
Thanks, Sabrina.